it just seems like they've got dudes all over the place in the secondary.
I would just say normal progression is all that really needs to happen for this to be the best secondary in the Big 12. Now, I know Utah has some pretty good defensive backs. Iowa State is really good at safety with Jeremiah Cooper. They have a good corner in Miles Purchase, so they're in the discussion. But I don't know that there's a team out there with three safeties as good as Jordan Riley, VJ Payne, and Marquise Siegel. Jacob Parrish, Keenan Garber, to be honest, just like expected normal progression makes them two of the top 5 to 10 corners in the league, and that's probably just being conservative.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of 3 Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. It is game week, everybody. We've made it. You survived. You made it through the offseason. K-State will play a football game on Saturday. And we are here to finish our season preview by talking about the defense, which has a chance to be one of, if not, maybe the best in the Big 12. You are basically out of time to stock up on stuff from our friends at Holiday Distillery, but you probably still have, so you can get off work today as soon as you're listening to this. If you're listening to this as you're getting off work, rush to your favorite liquor store and get some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon for this weekend, whether you're going to be at Bill Snyder Family Stadium or not. Make sure you have that, some 360 vodka so that you can please everybody. But if you're a bourbon drinker, we hear great things about Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery, who are great K-State people. So get out and support them, and make sure you've got the best tailgate around at Bill Snyder Family Stadium this Saturday. And as if we don't do enough for you already by giving you a home field discount, letting you know about Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon so you can have the best tailgates, we've even got a chance for you to win $500. How about that? You want an extra $500? Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. The survey will help create a better advertising experience for you, the audience, and in turn, help this show. You guys want to help us, right? So go to bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to win the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode. You guys going to try and win it? You going to fill it out, Cole? $500? What would you do with $500 extra here before game week? Put it all on the Keegan Johnson. Put it all on the Keegan Johnson over? Is that what you would do with it?
The supporter or sponsor.
I'd either go get some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon and fully stock up, or I might hit that Keegan Johnson over. I might hit the if I could get a total on Avery Johnson all-purpose yards of around 3,500 plus. Maybe I'd hit that as well.
6,000, then think about the odds you could get on that. Okay, no, we're talking defense today. Let's not get seduced by the offense, okay? We're talking defense today. The theme of the offense was explosiveness and how we feel like they could be much more explosive this year, and that was a problem last year. What about the defense, Cole? Big picture, what do you feel about this unit and where things are at headed into 2024 when it seemed like, some of the reports out of camp may have been that the defense was a little bit ahead of the offense?
I mean, look, I think it could be top 2, top 3 defense in the Big 12. I don't see any reason why not. I mean, it could be the top defense in the Big 12, depending on Utah and Iowa State. Primary competition there. Look, this is a defense last year that allowed 1.91 points per drive, which ranked number 3 in the Big 12 and number 34 in the country, and it tied for the best since 2013 by a K-State defense. So they were terrific last year on the defense side of the football, outside of a couple of key areas that we will hit on this show in terms of giving up too many explosive plays. Sound familiar? Something with the offense, too, that we talked about. And then also the rush defense just weren't good enough up front, especially in the back half of the season against the run. So they'll have to get better there. But when you think about this defense, they do a lot of things really well, particularly in the Chris Kleiman and Joe Klanderman era. In 2023, when you took a look at turnovers, K-State was plus 11 in turnover margin, tied for number 5 nationally and number 1 in the Big 12. And in 2022, they were plus 12 in turnover margin, tied for number 8 nationally and number 1 in the Big 12 as well that year. And that's driven largely because K-State's been great at taking the football away from their opponents. 1.9 turnovers per game forced last year, which was 8th nationally. and number 2 behind only Oklahoma in the 2023 Big 12. And in 2022, 1.8 turnovers forced per game, which ranked number 19 nationally and number 1 in the Big 12. You look at red zone touchdown rate last year, K-State was terrific. We talked about red zone offensive touchdown rate for the offense. K-State ranked number 2 in the country in offensive touchdown rate when in the red zone last year. The defense, very similar. K-State's defense ranked number 2 nationally in red zone defense touchdown rate, only allowing a touchdown on 35.4% of the time their opponents were in the red zone. Again, that was second in the country behind only UCLA. So this is a defense that capitalized in certain areas. Third down defense, they came up at the right times. They allowed a 30% conversion rate on third downs last year. That was number 11 in the country. They were terrific there. Their pass efficiency defense, we'll get on that when we talk about this secondary, but it was the best from a pass efficiency defense perspective since the 2013 K-State defense. They were number 1 in the Big 12, or number 2, behind Oklahoma in the Big 12 in pass efficiency D last year when it comes to that, and 14th nationally. And if you look at the F-plus defensive rankings, guys, Brian Fremeau's F-plus, which merges Bill Connolly's ranking, and then Fremeau's FEI rankings, K-State came in ranked number 19 nationally in the 2024 projections on the defensive side of the football. That ranks number 2 in the Big 12 behind only Utah, which is number 10 in the F-plus defensive rankings of Fremeau's.
All right, DY, where are you at on this defense?
I mean, it was number 3 in the Big 12 last year. If it's not at least that or better, I would think it's a pretty big disappointment. Folks, I think, get a little bit twisted up on this defense from year to year and how good it has been. It's been really, really freaking good. Now you got a bad taste in your mouth last year because of the Iowa State game, and I think that kind of warped people's feelings and thoughts on this defense, but it's already been really good. And there's a lot of returning production back from last year's defense that was pretty good outside of that one game. So, yeah, I expect this to be a top 3 defense, probably in the top 2, because I think you need to take a step forward and not just toe the line that you did last year. And people say, well, yeah, Texas and Oklahoma are gone, but you did it. But now there's 16 teams, so is it tougher to get in the top 3? I mean, I don't think I'm going to worry about Arizona State and Colorado's defense cracking the top 3 or 4. Arizona has, a couple of good players there, Jacob Manu and Takario Davis on their defense, but I still think K-State will be better than them. So you're basically, defense-wise, you're substituting out Texas and Oklahoma as good defenses for just one in Utah, in my opinion. So, yeah, I still think this should be a top 3 defense, if not 1 or 2.
How dare you say that about Colorado, DY? Coach Prime's not going to take any questions from you. You're going to get put on the Sean Keeler list.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I think we all would agree the part that we're most excited about with this defense is the secondary, and it has a chance, perhaps, to be the best in the Big 12, and that is our top storyline today, which is brought to you by our friends at Alinco. For all your home improvement needs, make sure you talk to Alinco, locally based company out of Kansas City, owned by K-Staters. What has to happen for this group of secondary players to be best in the Big 12? Like, I think Marquise Siegel, absolutely one of the best safeties out there. We've talked about it many times that he just hung on to some interceptions last year, would probably be getting more notoriety and wouldn't be flying as much under the radar as he is right now. And then, look, we heard Chris Kleiman absolutely raving about his 2 starting corners in Keenan Garber and Jacob Parrish, how they bulked up, the weight that they put on. They have a lot of depth at corner, too. Shout out to my guy, Jordan Dunbar, who I'm looking forward to, Rice transfer. It just seems like they've got dudes all over the place in the secondary.
I would just say normal progression is all that really needs to happen for this to be the best secondary in the Big 12. Now, I know Utah has some pretty good defensive backs. Iowa State is really good at safety with Jeremiah Cooper. They have a good corner in Miles Purchase, so they're in the discussion. But I don't know that there's a team out there with 3 safeties as good as Jordan Riley, VJ Payne, and Marquise Siegel. Jacob Parrish, Keenan Garber, to be honest, just like expected normal progression makes them 2 of the top 5 to 10 corners in the league, and that's probably just being conservative. And then, like I said, the 3 safeties. I think they have the best safeties in the Big 12, and I think they have the corners to go with it. So I don't think anything special needs to happen for this to really be the best secondary across the board in the Big 12. I think, there's a couple teams that have a really good safety group. There's a couple teams that have a really corner group. I don't know that there's another one outside of K-State that has a really good safety group and a really good corner group both across the board.
Only thing I could think of, DY, number 90 in the country in passing explosiveness allowed. I think they can maybe cut down and minimize on some of the big plays through the air. But
no, that I don't think that was the defensive backs. I think that was the lack of pass rush last year.
Well, that definitely could have played a part. I mean, look, K-State was 99th in the country in sack rate last year. The crazy thing is we talk about this secondary and how good they are and fully trust that they will be. And it's just a testament to them because you look at it, like we're talking about Jacob Parrish, who's only started 12 games in his career, and Keenan Garber, who's only started 5 games in his career at corner. And we're talking about them like they're the best duo in the Big 12, which I believe they are. But it's only to show that they have so much more room that they can potentially grow, especially at safety too. BJ Payne was a true sophomore last year, has never redshirted. You think about Marquis Siegel, that was his first year at the FBS level, transferring over from North Dakota State. And so these guys will probably take another step this next year when you think about the youth and the inexperience they had last year coming into really first-time starting roles at this level for Kansas State. So I expect these guys to make an even bigger jump now and get even better. And what I already said was a secondary that ranked 14th in the country and number 2 in the Big 12 in pass efficiency defense last season.
Yeah, and the pass explosiveness also a product of just they were a bad tackling team last year. Because if you go look, at some of the advanced numbers, I think even from Pro Football Focus, like Willie and Keenan Garber, the QBR against them is really bad. So they're covering the crap out of dudes. They're actually the worst QBR allowed on the team was Will Lee.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Pro Football Focus had Will Lee graded as the worst pass coverage corner by far comparatively to Keenan Garber and Jacob Parrish, and Parker had shared that with us as well on our Discord. So not even close. I think Garber and Parrish could be all Big 12 type corners. I think K-State has several guys in the secondary that can be all Big 12 type players. When we talk about Siegel, Payne, I mean, I think BJ Payne is going to take a big step.
Yeah. The explosiveness element, they just got to tackle and they got to get a little more pass rush, in my opinion.
And honestly, rushing explosiveness was the bigger problem. Like they gave up more rushing plays on the ground.
And that was the inexperience of defensive tackle and all the injuries at linebacker.
VJ Payne, I feel bad for not mentioning him in the open here because he's a guy that I feel like is getting overshadowed quite a bit now because most of the praise that we've heard, Joe Klanderman came on here on the podcast and was talking up hey, I wouldn't take any safety in the country other than Marquis Siegel, and then Kleiman's been hyping up the 2 starting corners, and we've been talking a lot about corner depth, and I love Jordan Dunbar, and then it's oh yeah, by the way, VJ Payne's a really good safety too that's also coming back.
Out of the 5 starters, I believe he has the most Power 4 starts of any of them.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got to be the most experienced guy at this point. So yeah, tough break when you're in such a good secondary. By the way, little quiz for you. We'll see who's been reading their Phil Steele this offseason. Who does Phil Steele say has the best secondary in the Big 12?
My guess might be Iowa State, just because everyone really likes Miles Purchase and Jeremiah Cooper. That's 1 safety, 1 corner.
I mean, I don't read.
I don't have the magazine though.
I haven't read Phil Steele in years after I figured out how I don't really believe in his numbers and his projections. So another enemy of 3 Mall that I'm putting on the list, John. Look, I remember the drive home from Dallas and Big 12 Media Day last year when you were rattling off a bunch of trivia questions about Phil Steele's magazine, and he had some ridiculous rankings. I'd say either Iowa State or Utah.
Well, Cole, it's very interesting you say that you don't believe in Phil Steele anymore.
You, isn't it?
Because he has the Kansas State Wildcats as the number 1 secondary in the Big 12. So I'm not sure.
Hey. Ball knower, Phil Steele.
I was going to say, so Cole, your reaction to Phil Steele.
I was really kidding. What a great.
Not expecting Phil Steele to be wise in 2024 because he was not in 2023.
He clearly got my email with my complaints from last year and has decided to spend more time on film study.
And by the way, and this is not me trying to appease anyone, but not mentioning KU was probably in there. I mean, I know everyone thinks Kobe Bryant is overrated, and he might be, but he's still pretty good. And I think their best corner is actually Melo Dotson.
Well, I mean, Kobe Bryant's we were talking about this the other day in the Patreon, in the Discord. So if you want to join our Discord, patreon.com/3mall to do that. he's like a home run hitter, man. Like he's always swinging for the fences. Like he's got both of those guys have so many defensive touchdowns and that's what gets him a lot of media attention because people notice that, right? But like, yeah, I feel like on a consistent play-to-play basis, Mello Dotson is definitely the more consistent of the two corners. Anyway, Kansas was number 8 according to Phil Steele. So Cole, I don't know if you want to readjust this Phil Steele take because he had Kansas number 8 in the secondary rankings in the Big 12. Iowa State was number 2, DY. So you were dead on there, and who else you liked?
Yeah, I assume KU safety play is a question mark. I guess.
Oh, they got Marvin Grant in. He's supposed to be a good player, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think that's kind of being a hater on KU secondary a little bit to put him at 8.
I know. I thought the same thing. Yeah.
I should have sniffed out that trap. Damn it. I should have known John was trying to entrap me there with my...
I will say Oklahoma State's defense a little overrated just because they don't have a great secondary, but they're good up front. So, yeah.
But they've got good linebacker. Yeah, that front 7 I think is really good for.
Yeah, not they don't have depth at the line, but they're pretty good starters. But their linebacker group might be the best in the Big 12.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a lot of fun. Speaking of Oklahoma State, DY, you're wearing orange today. Can I presume that is an Oklahoma State home field apparel shirt? Am I correct in doing that?
It is home field, but it is not Oklahoma State.
Damn.
Like I couldn't get, KU plays vaunted Lindenwood this week, and I couldn't find a Lindenwood home field shirt, just not in the catalog. So I got Bucknell.
I just assumed it was Illinois. Bucknell.
No, Bucknell. That brings back good memories, right? No?
I mean, it does, but boy, that's going way back. What was that, like 2004? I don't know. That was a long time ago.
I mean, Bucknell might be better than Lindenwood.
In
Does
football?
Bucknell play football?
They might be. I saw that Kansas is like a 48.5 point favorite if you're degenerate enough to take odds on that game.
Well, just a few years ago, Lindenwood was losing to Pitt State and Emporia State. So,
brutal. Okay. Well, I'd imagine that, Kansas will have not much of a problem there, and you won't have much of a problem finding great college sports gear at homefieldapparel.com, whether it is Bucknell or K-State, which they have 100-plus teams out there. They have 50-plus K-State designs. It is all awesome. You see Cole and I wearing it all the time, and, you see Derek wearing assorted versions of home field apparel quite a bit. If you want to be wearing the best K-State gear around at Bill Snyder Family Stadium this fall, get to homefieldapparel.com. We'll even give you 15% off your first order. It's promo code 3MA24 in order to do that. And we are back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
When you discover a new binge-worthy show or a song that you play on repeat and you just have to share it with your friends so they can experience just how awesome it is too? Well, that's how we felt when we discovered that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there's no way we could keep it to ourselves. Friends don't let friends overpay for wireless. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plan and switch to Mint Mobile. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your own phone number and bring along all your friends. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/3ma. That's mintmobile.com/3ma. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/3ma. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Well, as lively as ever, you guys that have been hitting us up on the Mint Mobile text line that we have, the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile, which if you want to utilize that, it's 913-407-6524, 913-407-6524. To get in contact with us on the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. We have put one Derek Young in charge of that. So, DY, what are the questions that we're getting on the Mint Mobile hotline here?
from our guy Parker Eames, who's on the Discord, I know. Which of the 3 redshirt freshman defensive ends is most primed to have a breakout season comparable to what Felix Inudike-Uzama did in 2022? My argument would be Felix kind of broke out in 21, right? Busted him to the scene. Texas Tech game with the safety. But I would pick Ryan Davis right now. I think he has the most steam behind his name.
I think we're all going to say Ryan Davis, right? Based on just the intel that we have, right? Am I off on that?
Cool.
I think that's fair. And 2021 Felix too. It was the TCU game was 21, right? When he had like the 5 sacks too later.
Yeah. In the season. Well, he had 6 sacks, but they took 2 of them away from him.
Yeah. Look, I think Ryan Davis is probably the answer. I mean, he's getting the most buzz, but if I'm thinking about like Felix type potential guys, I'll go with Jordan Allen. I mean, there may not be quite the level of buzz there, but I think Jordan Allen, from a pass rushing natural talent perspective, Toby would be a guy I could take too, but I think he's going to be more of a situational pass rusher. I think he's going to lead the team in sacks, which by the way, Curry said as well. Curry Sexton on the pod that released this morning. Go check it out. He has Toby leading the team in sacks, but I think Jordan Allen would be the guy that I'll choose here.
I'm going for Felix. It's like the pass rusher extraordinaire, and I just based off my intel, Ryan Davis is the better pass rusher than Jordan Allen, and then projects to be the better pass rusher. I think Jordan Allen may be the more complete player. So,
all right.
Interesting to think about in that vein, at least from what I understand. Under Kleiman, we don't have a name for this one, but under Kleiman, K-State is 2-5 after bye weeks, 1-4 if you exclude the COVID season, like Cole likes to do. Is there something to this? And how would a loss at Colorado after a bye derail this season? Well, a loss at Colorado would be. I don't think you want to lose that game. It would be concerning on a number of fronts because then you go to West Virginia and you're at least worried about a 2-game losing streak, and then you got to go to things get real complicated if you lose that Colorado game. So that's almost like a must-win in the season, just based off where it is on the schedule, where it is being played, who's against, and who follows that game. But is there something to the bye week stuff? I don't know. I think some of that. I think people put too much stock in records after bye week, even if they are good or bad, personally.
So you're an Andy Reid hater, is what you're telling me?
I mean, I don't know. I just don't think there's anything. Yeah.
I'm just giving you shit because that's the storyline. I was like, we're calling Chris Kleiman the anti-Andy Reid here, right? Like Andy Reid has this insane record off of a bye week where nobody ever beats him. I don't know. I've never really, I haven't taken a lot of stock in it or like thought about it a ton as to why something could be happening off of bye weeks. Colorado, yes, is the start of a really difficult stretch in this season. You would not want to be losing that game, especially with. I continue to, even as someone who I'm rooting for Colorado. I think Deion being good is good for the Big 12, but the more stuff continues to happen there outside of the football field, I worry about them really blowing up and kind of spontaneously combusting this year. So definitely do not want to lose that. But Cole, I'm sure, is here to reassure us that this is going to be a 35-point K-State win. I think it got knocked down to 35 from 53.
It got knocked down to 10. Let's please be factual. Facts matters. 41-31 at Colorado was the projected on the pod that we did in the season preview. I think it's also important to look at contextually where the buys fell and the opponent that followed the bye. If you look at 2019, the bye was heading into the 4th game of the season. They just won at Mississippi State, and then they go on the road and play at Oklahoma State that year. The win also came that year in 2019, guys. They lost to Baylor in Manhattan, and then they knocked off TCU 24-17 a couple weeks later. You look at 2021, as I load that up, K-State had a bye week. Where is the damn? Oh, this is probably the most disappointing one, guys. So they lost at home to Oklahoma 37-31. They had a bye week, and then they come back at home on October 16th and lose to Iowa State 33-20, and we're really never a part of that game from the onset, unfortunately. That was probably the most disappointing. In 2022, the bye week came after the 10-9 win at Iowa State, and they lost at TCU. I don't think anybody...
Yeah, they're the national runner-up. I would say in 21, not to give excuses, I just don't think that team was good enough yet. They were still figuring out themselves in terms of culture and everything.
And then last year, yes, this one's pretty disappointing too, though, again, Oklahoma State did end up in the Big 12 championship game, but you beat UCF. Things started to look like they were back on track. Oklahoma State was reeling, and you go to Stillwater and you lose 29-21.
Yeah. So part of it is just like they coincidentally have played really good teams after the bye weeks.
Yeah. That's good context. What else, DY?
We got another one here. And I think it's from Parker as well. Would you take Garrett Green's numbers last season for Avery Johnson this season? I will just say in totality, yes. Because Garrett Green had over 3,100 yards, almost 3,200 total yards, and I believe almost 30 touchdowns, 29 touchdowns, 16 throwing, only 4 interceptions. He threw for 2,406 yards. Not a great completion percentage of 53, obviously. In totality, though, with the 772 rushing yards tacked onto it, I think I would take it. But what I would anticipate is the rushing yards being maybe a tiny bit less for Avery and the passing yards being a bit more.
Well, I think the correct answer here is that you should take it. You probably should take that. And we've had some of these discussions is the hype getting too out of control here? People are predicting him to win the Heisman. I mean, if you're expecting him to be invited to New York for the Heisman ceremony, then your answer here is probably no. But if we're just being realistic, that would be a really good statistical season. Now, there's some context that needs to go with that. How are the yards dispersed? Who's it against? What's the record? There are a lot of things that could change with all of that. But in general, yeah, I think you'd have to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. There's 3,100 yards and almost 30 touchdowns there. But like you said, contextually, if you want to look at it, they only played 2 teams in the top 35.
Yeah, I mean, look, Garrett Green was one of the most explosive players actually in college football last year. I think, I don't have the numbers pulled up directly in front of me. I'd pulled them a while back, but I believe he was top 5 in yards per completion and in terms of yards per carry by a quarterback, 6.3 yards per rush. I think he was top 5 among quarterbacks as well. He was 23rd in the country overall in rushing plays of 20 or more yards, which was at 11 last year. So a very dynamic, explosive quarterback. The only knock is what DY mentioned. I mean, he took care of the football, 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions through the air, but a 53% completion percentage is probably too low. And you'll see if Avery Johnson completes only 53%, the narrative on him struggling to pass the ball will only pick up steam. So I'd like to see if you told me Avery would be around 58% or higher, I'd probably take Garrett Green's numbers from 2023. I think that'd be a pretty successful season.
I just don't know if I want him running as much as Garrett Green did.
Well, that's the thing. Let's just hope that those runs are 60-yarders so that it adds up, because I don't want 5 to 10 carries a game.
Well, the funny thing about that is I feel like Garrett Green was kind of like, L. Roberson, Michael Bishop, like Jonathan Beasley back in the day, Cole, when K-State's offense was have a quarterback that completes 45% of his passes, but they're all bombs down the field and then runs the hell out of the ball, and then win 11 games, by the way.
120 carries last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, John. I mean, yeah, Michael Bishop, Jonathan Beasley, Roberson, those guys heaved the ball downfield and didn't have the highest completion rate in the world. In fact, I remember when I would look back at those numbers, how stunned I was at the completion rate. I think there was a year where Beasley was 45, 46%.
One of those guys had a 39% completion year.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
Yeah. So Garrett Green can be that guy. Now he's a true dual threat guy and really came on last year, and he's part of the reason I am buying into the hype a little bit. And I'm really looking forward to that West Virginia Penn State game this Saturday, because I'll be very curious how West Virginia looks.
Michael Bishop didn't have a year under 40% completion percentage, but he had a 43 in 1997.
Yeah, and he was Big 12 Offensive Newcomer of the Year. 2001, L. Roberson completed 39% of his passes. Now, that was not a great year, but
yeah. Well, give me those numbers for Garrett Green for Avery Johnson. I think most people would say for a true sophomore to put up almost 3,200 yards and only turn the ball over a handful of times would be a success.
But I will say I did predict more touchdowns than the 29 that Garrett Green had last year.
I would be in favor of that passing. So to your point, DY, I'd probably like to be the passing numbers to be more like 2,700 instead of the 2,400 for Garrett Green, and maybe 500 on the ground, so that he's not running it quite as much.
And I think you need more total touchdowns, I think.
What about Rocco Becht? Guys, Rocco Beck threw for 3,100 plus yards last year as a redshirt freshman at Iowa State. I believe he was a redshirt freshman, and he had 23 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That question was floated on our Discord too. Would you take that from Avery passing?
Again, I think if you're going to be realistic, yes.
You'd have to.
The interception number, just because that's a high number at K-State. I mean, 10, Will Howard at 10 last year, and everyone was complaining about that.
Yeah, 8 doesn't sound too bad to me, but comparatively to what K-State's quarterbacks have done in the climate era, it'd be second most.
Yeah, because before, and I think Will Howard is the 2 highest ones.
Though I think we set the over-under on interceptions for Avery on the preview pod at like 7.5, so like we were right around there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And at 23 touchdowns, I mean, I guess that's close to school record. So
we've only had 3,000-yard passers in school history, so I feel like I'd be a fool to say I wouldn't take 31-20 through the air.
Yeah, and 24 is touchdowns as the school record. It's been done twice now, which I will say, like, it'd be nice to see that shattered at some point because that's such a pedestrian record.
Yeah. By the way, very funny to look back. Jonathan Beasley won 11 games in 1999, completing 44% of his passes. He also won 11 games in 2000, completing 49% of his passes. So just to underscore that point.
And, yeah, I'm trying to find, like, Joe Burrow's LSU year. Like, how many – didn't he throw, like, 50 touchdowns? Almost, it's like double the K-State record.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that to us. We don't need that, especially with all your Ohio State buddies shouting out Will Howard as the next Joe Burrow. Let's chill out on that a little bit. Okay, K-State's linebacking core look very good up front. I think we like what they have in Austin Moore and Des Purnell. Sounds like Asa Newsome is starting to recover well as a really talented young guy. Austin Romaine got a chance to play quite a bit last year. You do lose Jay Clifton to the Mormon mission that he is going on, but filled his spot with Alec Marinko, albeit a little bit banged up, it sounds like, during fall camp. What's your confidence level with the linebacking core being good enough in the context of what we talked about, like this defense being a top 3 defense in the Big 12?
A lot of it's going to depend on Austin Romaine. If he is what he's being built up to be during camp, then I have no concerns or issues whatsoever about how this is going to go. And especially because then I was like, how do I feel about the outside linebacker depth? I'm like, again, if Asa Newsome can build up to be what he actually is, then again, no issues there. So a lot of it's going to depend on Asa Newsome being able to supply the depth at the outside linebacker spots and for Austin Romaine to be a middle linebacker, just because, you know, with Marinko maybe not being what we thought him to be, at least at this point of the season, you're going to need someone to kind of grab the bull by the horns. Now, Austin Romaine was fine for a bit last year until he wore down and then obviously became an incredible liability. But that might, even though that was hard to stomach at the time, but for him and people watching him, obviously, and might be the best thing for this season.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got 2 really experienced guys back, and Austin Moore and then Desmond Purnell. Purnell's played in 27 games, started all 13 games last year, really came on. And then Austin Moore, we know his career accolades, 28 starts and 47 games in his career. So you got a veteran presence there, and Austin Romaine got valuable experience last year, having played in 12 games and starting a handful of those games. And it sounds like the light bulb has really come on for him after the experience last year and then having a full offseason in the program. And then you got Terry Kurtz behind him, who's coming on, the former JUCO product, a year removed from junior college ball at Hutch. Now it seems like things are starting to click for him. Asa Newsome, like you mentioned, John, the hype machine is really rolling there. Asa tore his ACL late in September last season, a guy that I was really excited about. I know a lot of K-State fans are. He just moves differently. He's longer. He's got the tool set to be an elite linebacker for Kansas State's defense, and it sounds like he's a guy that's going to be able to contribute pretty well for K-State, maybe behind Desmond Purnell on the depth chart, and give him a break. So I feel pretty good about the linebacker spot. You'd like to see a 6th guy come on. Can Rex Van Wy have the light bulb come on and give him that other backup outside linebacker on the edge? Who might that be? Cam Salas, as he transitions down from safety. Another young player, redshirt freshman. Can he be a guy that starts to contribute as the season goes on? But I feel pretty solid about linebacker. But they're going to have to be better against the run. And that's not just on the linebackers. That's on the defensive line. Look, I mentioned it earlier. K-State ranked 129th in the country and rushing explosiveness. That was 15th in the Big 12. There's 134 FBS teams. K-State was 129th nationally in rushing explosiveness allowed, and 5.1 yards per carry last year is the worst since at least the 2011 season, but likely beyond that by a K-State defense. They allowed 6.2 yards per carry in the final 5 games last year. It allowed over 200 yards rushing in 4 of those 5 games. They broke down against the run. And again, they had some guys banged up, and I think that was a contributing factor. But it was a poor rush defense by Kansas State. It was around 115th in the country or so in yards per carry allowed.
They did not get what they needed out of the interior of the defensive line last year. They were probably one of the worst tackling teams in the country. So just even becoming serviceable there will probably take away some of that explosiveness issue allowed. And it's going to come across as an excuse, but like when you have 3 season-ending injuries at one position, that's crippling. Daniel Green, Jake Clifton, Asa Newsome, that's 3 of your top 5 or 6 linebackers that you didn't have for almost an entire season. I know some of them were injured later, but at least half the season, all of them.
Well, Daniel Green was really early. It was the Mizzou game, right, when he was running around with one arm. Like,
right.
I'd even forgotten about Daniel Green, to be honest, that he played last year because it was so early on last season. So, yeah, I think it's fair to put a little bit of a Cole COVID season style asterisk on the linebacker position last year because of the injuries that they faced. Before we leave them, Derek, who would you peg as the best candidate to give them a 6th consistent, reliable linebacker?
Well, I think you're going to have Austin Romaine and Terry Kurtz on the inside. I think you're going to have, obviously, Desmond Purnell and Austin Moore, your starters, with Asa Newsome back up on the outside. That's 5. I mean, maybe Marenko, if he can pull it together, as it gives you a 3rd middle linebacker. I think Bo Palmer's going to play. In terms of another outside linebacker, I would have Zach Wittenberg, the next guy up after Asa Newsome. So,
interesting. Okay. Well, we got the question already about the defensive ends. I think when you look at the defensive line, there's a lot of potential there. The question will be how much of it comes together for this year when you need a much better pass rush. And then on the interior of the defensive line, you said it, last year was a little bit disappointing. Can Uso stay healthy? What is the ceiling for Damian Ilalio? I mean, I think we all feel good about him being a really legitimate contributor, and he's ready to step into that role. But he is a guy that didn't, I think most, based on just his recruitment, didn't feel like there was a super high ceiling there for him at the collegiate level. So what does that mean for the overall interior defensive line as a whole? Malcolm Alcorn Crowder is in the mix here too, I suppose, although it sounds like that may take some time to actually get there. I guess I'll frame it like this, Derek. Are you feeling better or worse about the defensive line than you were at the outset of fall camp?
I probably feel better about the interior for sure. I think Damian Ilalio is going to be a dude. I think, hearing that Uso is having the best practices of his career, you got to think he's headed at least in the right direction. And I really liked what I saw from Asher Tomaszewski.
Is it Thomas? I'll check it.
Yeah, some people say Tomaszewski, some people say Tomaszewski. I've never actually looked it up, but it's one of the two. I think he's going to be that 3rd interior defensive lineman, and I think he has a chance to be pretty good. Now, I don't know if he's played like a 12-game season yet, so there at some point there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be a wall probably of some sort, like the one that Austin Romaine hit last year. But I feel better about the interior. I feel okay about the ends, but it's nice to have 6 or 7 guys that can play, but one of them's got to be like a really, really freaking dude. And I think Brandon Mott can be solid if he's got a dude with him. And you're asking some 19-year-olds that have played very little football to be like a top 10 defensive end in the Big 12. It might be a large ask, but for Kansas State to get what they need to get, one of them probably has to be that. Now, the good thing is you got plenty of bites at the apple to do it because there's plenty of options and guys that are capable of doing it. Can you find one that can do it this early? That's a question, I think. Ryan Davis has obviously got probably the most steam behind him at this point to maybe ascend into that stratosphere, so to speak. Jordan Allen is maybe the most complete elitely talented of the two, but it seemed like he was still a work in progress based off Buddy Wyatt's comments. Chidi Obiizer, I think, still a work in progress based off comments in training camp. Both guys will play a lot. Toby's probably someone that can have a big impact, but how many snaps will he get? That's something I consider as well. And the guy we're probably not talking about enough that might just end up being that guy, because he's in his third year of college football already, and he was really productive even though it was at the FCS level, and that's Travis Bates.
Asher Tomaszewski, by the way. Tomaszewski.
Good work, John. I was going to mispronounce that as well. Asher Tomaszewski, and I would say part of the reason I feel better about the defensive tackle depth is because of the things we're hearing about Asher Tomaszewski. I mean, not only do I expect Damon Ilalio to take a jump this year, he's played 16 games, started 3 games last year. I expect him to make a significant jump. I expect Uso Seumalo to make a jump as well. He's now in his third year in the program. Expect everything to come together. He's been banged up throughout his career, and if he can stay healthy, I would expect him to take another leap. A guy that has a lot of raw potential and, didn't pick up football until late in his high school football career coming from Hawaii. So I feel good that they actually have developed maybe an adequate 3 deep at nose tackle when you factor in Tomaszewski. So the things we're hearing there are positive. The only concern, DY outlined a lot of the concerns at the end. It's a little disappointing to hear that Chidi Obiizer maybe his progress has slowed a little bit. But again, that's just kind of riding the wave of having some young guys and inexperience. Like, there's going to be some ups and downs, some ebbs and flows. And Chidi looks to be a guy that has a ton of promise, but maybe hasn't made quite the progress this offseason as a staff had hoped. He looked like a star in the making and still could be. He's only a redshirt freshman. So he could come on. He's got the size and physicality to give you what you need in the length at defensive end. So hopefully things will get figured out there. But like DY said, they've got, it's almost like you're going at the lottery here. You think one of these guys is going to hit because you got several different options at defensive end and talented options. So Travis Bates is a guy that could potentially come on. You got Cody Stuffle being back as well, another experienced guy going into year 4. And then you got the young promising guys and Ryan Davis. And look, I've already said it, like Toby Osinsami, I think, is going to lead this team in sacks this year. I think things are really going to get figured out. He didn't work out at the end at all last year, and he's now at a full off season. He's put on more weight. He's a freakish athlete that's very fast and strong and physical. K-State's leading sack guy last year was Khalid Duke at 6, and I think half of those occurred in the non-conference schedule. He couldn't get much going during the Big 12 portion of the season. Their second leading sacker was Nate Matlack at 4.5. They got to be better getting after the passer this year. And like I said earlier, they were 99th in the country in sack rate. And all that means is like what the secondary did last year is all the more impressive that they did it without K-State's pass rush being generated at a level that you would like to see. So, and I will say, like, I pulled the numbers on Big 12 pass rushes all together. And like, I don't know if a single team from what I remember was in the top 50 in the country in sack rate. The Big 12 is notorious for getting the ball out quickly, but K-State does have to be better there. You need to get that sack rate up and the pressure rate up.
Yeah, it doesn't take sacks, but you definitely need to be pressuring the quarterback for sure. Okay, well, I think, is it fair to say then you have the most question marks about what's going on the front 4, front 3, defensive line, put it that way?
Yeah, I think so. Although, one injury, a linebacker could put you in a bind.
Yeah.
Well, it was just last year that we thought they had the most linebacker depth that they'd had in the Climate era, right? And then look what happened.
And everyone's talking about depth that they have it this year, and that's great. But you already had kind of one set you back at linebacker. The depth's great until you have to use it all, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but overall, defensive outlook, you got a group that comes together where you've got 173 combined starts on this defense overall that have played in more than 370 games as well. So a lot of experience coming back, a lot of upside to this defense. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think all of us would agree that if the defense is kind of carrying the load the first couple of games this season, they'll probably be ready to go a little earlier with less mistakes.
Although my only caveat to that is that if you go and look at the advanced projected numbers for each of the 12 opponents on Kansas State's schedule, they don't play very good many defenses this year. I think Fan laid it out. I think in the F plus or SP plus, whatever it is, projected, I think Kansas State plays 2 defenses ranked in the top 50, but they play a lot of offenses in the top. So the Big 12 is a little bit more heavier on offense this year than it will be on defense. So the defense may have the taller task ahead of them than the offense.
Do you want to have it? I went through on Friday night and I charted some of this. So if you look at the F plus ratings of the 2023 defenses that K-State played.
What? No, he based off 24 projection.
Okay, well, I mean, I think the F plus probably in 24 projections won't be all that different from 2023 based on what Brian Fremont had said to me about how he models his predictions. But if you look at the 2023 model, K-State's average F plus ranking their opponent ranked 47.5 in the country. And in 2024, this is the projection, by the way. The 2024 F plus defenses project to rank 62nd in the country that K-State will go up against. So you're talking about a drop of nearly 15 spots. They played 4 top 20 F plus defenses in 2023. They play 0 top 20 F plus defenses in 2024. They played 2 top 40 defenses ranked in the F plus rankings, top 40. Last year, they played 6 in the top 40 of the F plus defensive rankings. So it's certainly something that we should factor in. I also pulled the points per drive rankings as well, and I'll save you for that. Maybe we'll save that for the pregame show that we do later this week.
It's the ebbs and flows of where experience is, where your talent is in a league from year to year, but the Big 12 is more weighted towards offense this year.
Well, I'll just tell you right now, 2.12 points per drive was the average of K-State's 12 FBS opponents last year. 2.12 points per drive allowed. This year, the average points per drive allowed by K-State's opponents on the schedule, FBS only, is 2.38. Look, 0.26 points per drive is a big drop down. And so, again, 3 top 25 defenses in points per drive last year. I don't see a single one on the schedule this year. In fact, the best points per drive defense from last year on the schedule is Arizona at number 27, and I expect Arizona to take a little bit of a jump down. I don't expect them to be quite as good. So, yeah, I mean, Iowa State, who we all think is good, 42nd in points per drive last year. Now, they'll make a jump, but...
Well, I mean, you just think about the mere fact, you're dropping Mizzou and Texas from the schedule, right? I mean, those are 2 pretty salty defenses last year. That'll help. One other thing I just wanted to mention, this is very obvious and just a very easy point to hit, but, when we talk about the offense and projecting them and what they're going to do, there is that factor of some level of uncertainty with you are changing coordinators. There's no more Colin Klein. We like, in general, I think, what they're doing with Connor Riley and Matt Wells, but that is a question mark. Joe Klanderman, no question marks. The guy's just been very steady, rock solid since taking over as coordinator, and is honestly big part of the reason that should give you hope for what K-State is doing with the transition and handing the baton off on the offensive side of the ball. But I just have a lot of trust with him and the defensive staff in general. I know there's been grumblings about certain parts, I suppose, of the defensive coaching staff, but there is continuity there. There's just a lot of continuity on that side of the ball with what the coaches are doing. So I would expect that would help in terms of getting things going this year.
Yeah, and since this is a defensive preview pod, I'll just really quickly give you the offensive numbers of K-State's opponents in 2023 and then look ahead to 2024. Last year's opponents combined to average 2.38 points per drive on offense. This year, 2.25 points per drive. It's not a huge drop-off. K-State faced 6 top 50 offenses in points per drive last year. They'll face 5 top 50 this year. And if you look at the F plus rankings, the average F plus offensive ranking of K-State's opponents last year was 41st nationally. This year projected to be 45th nationally. So K-State will still go up against some very talented offenses when you think about KU, West Virginia, Oklahoma. I wouldn't put Oklahoma State in that category, so I'll take them out. They're 26 somehow in the
Arizona and Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado is projected. Well, they're actually lower than I expected at 45th. I think they'll probably be higher than that. West Virginia projected in the F plus to be 29th. Oklahoma State 26th. Arizona 20th. Iowa State 36th. That's just an outline of some of the offenses K-State will go up against. So they'll be tested. But it's a good call out, DY, that the K-State offense will go up against defenses where, K-State has 4 opponents, guys, that were 116th or worse out of 134 teams in points per drive allowed last year. When you look at Houston, Colorado, Arizona State, and Cincinnati, 4 Big 12 teams that were 116th or worse BYU's not known to be a great defense either. They were 74th in points per drive allowed. And then there's one other, I feel like, but that's 5 very average. KU was like 93rd.
Okay, well, and I mean, you have UT Martin too. I mean, by the way, I don't know how you want to factor that in, but
yeah,
Houston will probably, where they will take the most strides by that point of the season, will be on defense. To be fair,
Cole, what are UT Martin? Where's the analytics on UT Martin's? Where are they?
Well, that's a later show, right?
I saved that for the pregame show for Thursday as we break down the Skyhawks of UT Martin. So I'm saving that for that show, guys. And to be fair, like I typically will use teamrankings.com for a lot of these numbers to remove FCS competition just for a more level setting. So I take out the FCS games and only look at FBS versus FBS opponents.
Okay. Fair enough. Closing thoughts. Anybody else have anything? We emptied the clip on the defense?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it, but 55% completion rate allowed last year as well, which is number 10 in the country, best by a K-State defense in a long, long time. And yards per pass allowed as well, 6.3 or 6.7, best in the Big 12, and best by a K-State defense since 2013 as well. So I meant to mention that with the secondary. I expect this group to maybe even make a bigger jump too. So exciting times. I think this defense could be the best in the Big 12.
But just remember, don't put any stock into that number one secondary thing because it was Phil Steele. So we can't trust Phil Steele. Can't trust him at all.
Yeah,
if you want to follow along with Cole's media hate list, which is getting quite lengthy these days, you can do so. Patreon.com/3ma. Get signed up, get on our Discord, and gets talked about pretty regularly there on the old Discord. So we appreciate everybody who is there. It's lively, it's fun. We're getting here towards the season. Mackenzie is back on the Discord even. So, that means things are really livening up around there. Thanks to all of our friends at Holiday Distillery, at Homefield Apparel, Mint Mobile, Alinco, which, by the way, I'm just realizing I didn't finish the Alinco read there. So let me stall and throw this back in here for our friends at Alinco. Really appreciate them. Local company based out of Kansas City. All your home improvement needs, they've got you taken care of. They're locally owned since 1986 in an industry where most have been bought out by national companies. If you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, they have premium window replacements and Kohler Luxstone shower systems. They can also do new siding on your home in KC, Manhattan, Western Missouri, Northeast Kansas, the entire KC Metro. Just go to alencohome.com, ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates. And just give Sam a call, 913-961-2165, 913-961-2165. They are awesome K-State folks who approached us just because they love the Cats. They love listening to the pod. So please go support them. For Nick behind the scenes, for Derek Young, for Cole Manbeck, I am John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Mile.